Welcome to In Her Words, Working Conversations by Women. I'm your host, Thando Mazibuko. Today we're talking about a truth that defies the stereotypes. Aging isn't about looking back, it's about leaning in. Our guest is Dr. Susanne T, educator, leader, and author of Healing from the Inside, Living Fully as You Age. At 87, Dr. Eden shares her journey of healing, transformation, and discovering that the later years aren't an ending. They're an invitation to live a more fulfilling life than ever. If you've ever felt that you are defined by your age, your past, or expectations that growth has an expiry date, this conversation is for you. Hi, Dr. Eden. How are you? Thank you for joining me today.
Hello, my dear. Thank you very much for having me. It's a privilege to talk to you.
Thank you. I really appreciate you coming today. And we had a little conversation about your journey and all your travels and the life you've lived. What made you decide to start writing this book and have this message about age and healing?
Well, that's what my book's about. So if you read that, no, I was an educator, and I was a very successful educator. But no matter how successful I was, I never had a sense of fulfillment. And that kind of criticism of self, allowing others to have power over how you feel and even your decision making, it's just wrong. And I know your audience are middle-aged, I would say. They're certainly not seniors, and I often talk to both groups. But it's important to, at the age and stage of your listeners, to understand that it's not all downhill from here. Recently, I had a conversation with a group of women who were much younger than me, and one was bemoaning the fact that she was turning 60. Oh, and the world had come to an end. And I'm sitting there very quietly listening to this conversation, and I finally started to laugh. And they all looked at me, and I said, you know, guys, I don't even remember that long ago. And you know, I look on aging as a gift. I didn't always. I was, like many of your listeners probably, feeling that, oh, it's all over now. And I had a lot of health issues. And they finally, they finally said, my body said to me, stop. I was one of these people who flew off in all directions and loved it. I had more ideas than 10 people should have. And so I hate the term burnout, but that's really describes where I was when I was about 60. I was at the university. I was in charge of a very busy program, and I was doing research and all kinds of interesting things that I loved doing and was good at. But physically, my body just stopped. And so I took early retirement to find a way to recover. That it was really a physical decision for me, as it will be for many people. And I started, I was brought up in my generation with the old belief system that the doctor knew everything, and we handed over all our power over our bodies to our doctors. And so when they told me to start taking prednisone, I must take it. I had developed a very serious inflammatory chronic disease through my whole body, and I had diabetes. And diabetes I controlled with diet and exercise until I started taking prednisone. And what none of the doctors told me, and I did not know that, this is over 30 years ago when all this happened. I was just turning 60 then, 55, I guess. And so I started taking prednisone, and it really was disastrous for me. And I was left on it for over 10 years. And I was told I could not come off it. If I came off it, my body would shut down and I would die. That was what was going to happen. But by that time, I couldn't even hardly tell you my name. I lived with such brain fog, and it had not helped with the inflammation. I was getting worse and worse. So I couldn't even hardly get out of a chair. There was one whole summer when my husband had to lift me out of the car and put me on. We had a beautiful boat, and he put me on the boat and I would sit there. I could go in the water and swim. That was the one thing that saved my sanity. But it was pretty serious. So the long and short of it is I took myself off insulin, and I knew the risks. I had a wonderful GP who kept track of things, and I've never looked back. When you asked me about why I wrote the book, my story really is about that journey of moving away from a fragmented, fractured kind of healthcare to a holistic view of health and healing and living. So it's taken me a long time. I had many false starts because when I began to do this, there wasn't a lot that pulled it together. There was a lot of stuff coming out on different aspects of holistic healing. But I was never finding something that's pulled it together so that I could make a protocol for myself, right? And that's so when fast forwarding to when the pandemic was starting, by then I had learned a great deal about not only health, but I had really become intrigued by the new research on aging and what it meant, and by my own experience. And I had lost several very close women friends who died in their 50s and 60s who didn't have the gift of aging. And they were women who'd looked after themselves, who didn't drink, they didn't smoke, they exercised. One of my best friends and I started swimming when we were in our 50s. And we would go to the pool, 2 nights a week. For years we did that. And she died at 52. So when the pandemic came, I was thinking of how I could help others going through this journey without going through all the stops and starts that I had. And I believe I have really found a workable way for a garden variety person like myself, and like many of your visitors or many of your listeners are, to heal from the inside. We are so conditioned in our society, everything is external. I call it living on autopilot, We're always trying to achieve more, have more, get more, do more. And healing and fulfillment isn't about that. It's about who we are. It's about who we were meant to be.
And I'm speechless because I'm listening to and taking note for myself. I think because we take it so for granted, the life and our health as young women, as young people, and that we make ourselves sick by the overconsumption and the overstress and overloading of our bodies and emotions.
Well, I've one of the things, the hardest chapters in the book was a chapter on food as medicine. And we don't know what we're consuming. Honestly, I just read a piece this morning about the chicken industry, and you know yourself. You put a chicken breast in the oven, and it's this size, and when you take it out, well, like and it will say on a ham, it's 15% protein. Well, what the heck's the rest of it, right? I thought this was all meat. No, not quite. So we are fighting against a lot of things that cause our health to deteriorate. And even when we are aware of things, I mean, I did a ton of reading about organics. And we are being sold a bill of goods so often. I mean, we have so many health food stores now. I was in one last summer where I'm living just on the outskirts of the city of Toronto, and there's a farm near me where they grow strawberries and things. And then along with their produce, they reach out to the farmers in the area. So they have a lovely market with things that have just been grown. Now, that doesn't guarantee stuff, because we know that stuff is put on plants and in the environment stuff, but at least it has a chance. So I was looking there, and I saw these beautiful fresh picked strawberries. They were about, I forget the exact price, but about $3. And I popped into the health food store to get some supplement that I take. And they had the very same strawberries for almost $8 because they were called organic. Well, and that's just one small example. And we don't know, and we don't always know what some products like strawberries and like soft fruit and soft vegetables are more vulnerable to the toxins from chemicals and things. But they will sell us other products that really... I saw an advertisement one day for popsicles that were supposed to be organic, and I laughed so hard I just about fell off the chair.
Organic?
They're water. They're water, right?
It's water and juice.
Oh, dear. But I think that I wish that I had known when I was 20, 30 years younger what I know now. And so that was my motivation for writing. And I've always loved to write. If I'd had my choice, I think I might have been, I wanted to be a journalist, but in my time, it was very difficult for women. We could either be secretaries, nurses, or school teachers. Yeah. Well, I hated anything to do with health at that time with nursing. I was a disaster at typing, so that left me teaching, which I ended up, by the way, to love. I never had a happier time in my life than working with very young children. It's a privilege. So that's where I started out. And I did do a lot of writing, educational writing. But now that's all I do, and I love it. As I say, I write blogs and I do newsletters and other things.
Your segment idea challenges that are saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks. What's one new trick you've learned about?
Well, technology.
Yes, let's talk about that.
If you had asked me maybe 3 years ago what a podcast was, I'm not sure I could have told you. And I have done maybe 15 in the last 2 months.
Wow.
It's hard, but I'm in a facility. It's not a seniors facility. It's a condominium, but we have a lot of people of my age and my generation. And when I talk to people who haven't embraced technology and persevered with it, they're left out. Yeah. And they're going to be left out quickly. especially with AI.
Yes.
I have a lot of problems with AI, especially as a writer. I have something in my book called that I talk about called a transformational journal. And in that, I talk about writing for understanding, which is very different than writing for communication, and why it's so important that is probably one of the along with meditation, those are the two most important tools we have to heal from the inside, because they help us to go deep and begin to understand ourselves. We don't know ourselves. We only know what's mirrored to us from other people because of this society in which we live, where we're looking at the external factors of everything. What I have, what I accomplish, what awards I get. Those are the important things. Those tell you who I am. No, they don't. What tells you who I am is what I do, and that comes from inside.
That's great.
You know,
you touched on a bit as your time as an educator, and you spent decades leading educators across Canada as a teacher, consultant, and board chair. How did that work prepare you for your inner work and healing and transformation to write this book?
Well, it probably caused me to write it because I was always very passionate about education, and I still am. And my field of research was children's play and learning. And when we talk about holistic healing, healing from the inside that involves not just physical cure, but mind, body, and spirit. We look at children's play, and it is the ultimate holistic practice for children to learn that which no one else could teach them. They have to learn it through experience. If you think about social development, how to become a productive member in society of a collaboration, let's say, which is what our workforce has to be in the future. And it's coming that way. How do we learn how to collaborate? We learn how to collaborate as young children through play. There are wonderful educators whose work I built my work on, who talk about those first 5, 6, 7 years of life set the pattern for our entire existence. And yet certainly in North America, we pay so little serious attention to young children. We don't pay the people who work with them. We wait till they're shooting each other at 15 on the streets before we get, try to find a solution. No, it's in those early years. Now, with children who have just come through those vital years during a pandemic, it's showing up in schools. And teachers and parents will tell you they're very concerned. Because what did those children do? Even at age 3, they were sitting there with a device. And they don't know how to talk to each other. They don't know how to negotiate. If you watch children, as I did when I was studying children's play, I did it as a play. I did my doctoral study as a play partner for a whole year with a kindergarten group. I would go in every single morning. I was not the teacher. In fact, one day, the teacher, who was a good friend of mine, a wonderful, wonderful kindergarten teacher, she's the one, by the way, that died at 52. Anyway, she got called out because one of her own children had been hurt at a different school. And I said, well, I'll get them ready, for, I don't know what, I think it was the French teacher was coming in or something. So they were playing happily, and all was going well until it was time to tidy up. And I said to them, now, boys and girls, time to tidy up. And they ignored me totally, all just going about their business. So I got a little sterner and stood a little taller and said, boys and girls, it's time to tidy up. And they continue to ignore me. And finally, one little kid chirped up and he says, "You're not the teacher." And another little kid said, "No, and you're not even the mother."
Oh my God.
That's how successful I was as a play partner to 5-year-olds. It was a magical study. It was an absolutely magical study. I wrote a book on that called Playworks, printed it in 2009, and I keep threatening to redo it and issue it again. It should be out now. We need it so badly.
We do. A lot of parents need it.
Well, because we don't know, and teachers are not getting the kind of, I can say this because I come from a faculty of education, teachers are not being trained in the faculties of education for how to teach children. I make a big distinction between high school, where we teach subjects, and young children, where we teach children.
That's true. You touched on the transformational journal, which is one practice that you recommend. I know you touched on it a bit. Would you tell us what it is and how it would help in everyone's lives?
Yes, I started that quite a long time ago. I started it as a gratitude journal where, I would look around and think about my life and what was good about my life, because this whole journey of change and transformation starts in the mind. That is the cornerstone right there. And that's what affects eventually the health portion as well, because I really do believe that illness begins from trauma inside. And when we start to look inside, when we begin to do meditation and mindful practices like the gratitude journal, we begin to question within ourselves, and we begin to find the person we are meant to be. Not just the person we think we are. And that's a very different thing. So the transformational journal, it can begin anywhere we want it to. I'm doing a supplement for my book. I'm doing 2, possibly 3 supplements, which will be transformational journals. The first one is on self-understanding. And that is where we begin to question who we are. And I build my work on finding the best of yourself first, not looking at, what's wrong with me? What do I got to fix quick? What am I going to work on? It's not work. It's understanding. It's awakening a part of yourself that's probably been dormant for a very long time, and that is that organic spirituality that is in all of us. And transformational journal is the way to get there. So we begin by looking at, what are we good at? What do we really enjoy? When do I shine? What makes me shine? And you'd be surprised how few women can answer that question. You ask them, what do they have to fix? They all know. But you ask them, when do you shine? What makes you really have a belly laugh out loud? We don't do that. So that's the beginning for me. And in my own journey, it started, as I say, I was journaling, I was writing, and it leads itself. I don't know how else to say it. But as you begin, the journey itself, that energy that flows through us, that connects us to every other living thing, is our guide. And you will be shocked. I can just tell you this story quickly, but I was doing energy healing, something called network spinal analysis, with a wonderful doctor who used to give lectures. So I went to one of his lectures, and it was about, trauma in utero, traumas that affect us that we never used to imagine that. If you look at adoption, for example, people would think, well, if you take a baby right from the hospital and provide a good home, all is well. Well, we know that's not true. There are traumas. So anyway, I went to this thing, and I came home, and I got out my journal, and I just started to write about my own story. And what I've always been told was I was very, very small. I was only, I think, under 4 pounds. In my time, that the likelihood of living was very low. My mother was very sick with heart problems, and I suddenly got a picture of this little scrap of a person fighting to live and survive. And what was it? And where did that come from? That will to survive, that will to live, that will to be. And so that started me on looking at myself. And one thing, for example, when I talked earlier about what makes you shine, I never, ever thought of myself as being strong. And yet when I look back over my life, I see time and again where I did things that I don't know how I did them. So that is the connection with the energy piece that is so foundational to my book, that we are part of energy that we never knew about. And that's what gives us power. So that was my starting, was thinking of this little scrap of a person. And I had serious traumas in my childhood. But I don't want to talk about that part. But I mean, we all have things.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eden, for your time and for your wisdom and just sharing with us. Where can our listeners find your book? And I will link all your blog and where to find the book as well.
Thank you. The book is on Amazon, and if you go to my website, Susanne Eden, SUSANNEEDEN. So there's 2 N's and 2 E's.com. I have my blogs are on that. There are links for articles that I've written and for podcasts. And there's also a section called Conversations that I've just started. And it begins with one that I did with my friend who was in her final journey. So there's a lot of stuff on that if you're interested and you don't have the energy for a whole book. The blogs look at different little pieces throughout that. And it's not a book that you have to sit down and read from cover to cover. A friend of mine says what she does. I think it's important to read a whole book first with any nonfiction, get a sense of where it's going. And then it's not a one and done. Then you pick pieces that talk to you. I don't believe there's a recipe. I don't provide a recipe. What I provide are supports and ideas for you to shape your journey for yourself. You know what you need to do. And that comes to the Transformational Journal. Start writing, start thinking. And in my book, I have in every chapter something called Taking Action. And that's really what my transformational journals, the supplements that I'm coming out with, expand on those kinds of things. So they give you ideas start with reflection. Breathing is very, very important. Deep breathing. That is one of the practices that I couldn't do without. Mm-hmm. And I didn't do any of that stuff before. I didn't know to do it.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate your deep wisdom, and
Thank you.
We'll take our chats and do some own reflection as well.
I hope so. And I wish all your visitors, or all your listeners rather, the same joy that I have found it's not that everything is perfect. It never is. That is not life. But I'm at a place after all of these years where I feel more content. I feel just as passionate as I did when I was talking about playing children. And I wish that same motivation. It's not over. You know, we know now that after, you know, that we can live to be 100. So if you're 40 and 50, you got 40 more years maybe. What are you going to do with them?
Yeah.
I leave you with that question. What are you going to do with those years?
Yes. What are you going to do? Thank you, Dr. Susanne.